Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Ziad and today we will see together a Symfony component called Option Resolver. According to Symfony documentation, the Option Resolver component is an improved replacement for the array replace PHP function. It allows you to create an options system with required options, defaults, validations, normalization, and more. Say that you have a cat entity, and this cat entity has name, breed, age, color, and weight. The name is a string which should be specified, so it's required. The breed the same, of type string, and it is required. The age of type integer and is optional. The color is of type string and is optional. The value should be white, gray, or black, and the weight is an optional float. And for this entity we have this constructor over here, the constructor that takes an array as argument, and then it will map the values of this array here to the attributes of this class. So the name value of the array would be assigned to the name attribute, and the breed value of the array will be assigned to the breed attribute, and so on and so forth. What we are missing here is a layer of control that will control the array that is passed to this constructor here, that will assure for us that the values in this array are conform to what we are expecting as types here. For example, string for the name and white for the color. So we are going to do that with the option resolver component. So let's see how we can do that. Alright, let's start by creating the project, and we will do that with composer create project Symfony skeleton 6.3 version, and the project name will be options resolver. So we will let composer create the project for us and download all the dependencies. Then we need to cd to our project and require three components: Symfony option resolver, and then Symfony maker bundle, and finally Symfony serializer pack. Serializer would be used to transform an object into a JSON format. Maker would be used to create a controller, and the option resolver is what we will be using to validate the data that we have in the cat constructor. Alright, so let's download our dependencies and wait for composer to finish. I have my project opened with PHP Storm, which is a new Symfony project. What we are going to do is within SRC we are going to create a new folder called entity, and within that folder we are going to create a new PHP class called cat, and within this class here we are going to have the attributes that we already saw in the beginning of the video, which are name, breed, age, color, and weight. I have also generated getters for these attributes here because we are going to need these getters in the future to generate a JSON format with this serializer component. So our class will take for the constructor, as we saw in the beginning of this video, an array. I'm going to have my constructor here taking an array and then mapping this array into the attributes that we already have here for this class. And as we already said, we are going to have here a layer of control that will validate the values passed here as argument to the constructor. But first, in order for us to test quickly and easily all the possibilities that the name, breed, age, color, and weight will have, let's create a simple controller that will get possible values for us as input. It's a simple API that will get all the possible values as input for the cat attributes, and then create a cat entity and then return it as a JSON. To do so, we are simply going to create a controller with PHP bin console make controller. Let's give the controller cat controller name, and we have our controller generated to us thanks to Symfony Maker bundle. So here for our cat controller, I'm going to name the API cats simply, and then it will be named create cat, and then here we are going to create the cat entity. So we need the request being injected here for us. So request, and then we are going to create a cat entity from that request. So cat equals new cat, and then request to array, which will basically convert all the values that we are going to send through the request into an array, because the cat constructor is taken an array. And then we are going to return a JSON with the cat object that we have already created. So it's a simple 2-line that we are going to add here. And in order to test that, here I'm using Postman, but feel free to use any tool that you can that will send simply post requests to an API. Before testing the API, let's start the server. So we are going to use Symfony CLI tool. So it's gonna be Symfony server start. Make sure that you are in the project before starting the server, otherwise it will start another project and you will get an error. Okay, so our server is running on localhost 8000, and if you go to the Postman over here and we create a post request to localhost 8000 and then API/cats, it's gonna be cats simply, not API cats, because here has defined cats if I'm not wrong. Yes, and then we will be sending a post, as I said. Name will be cat, breed will be Scottish Fold, for example, color will be W, and weight will be 1.2. So if I send that, let's change it to 1.3 because we already have the response here, and I send that, I should be having the same value that I have sent here as a response. Yes, okay, I have name cat Scottish Fold, a new property age because I haven't sent the age here, and color Y, W, and weight 1 point. So thanks to this API over here, we can test different values for our attributes, and we will see how our code will react to these changes in real time. So let's recall the rules that we have set up for our cat creation. We said that we should have a name of type string and it's required. The same goes for breed, and you should have an age, which is optional, of type integer, a color of type string, which is optional as well. Possible values are black, gray, and white, and finally the weight of type float and is also optional. So let's start by adding to our API an extra value, because we said that we should accept only weight, color, age, breed, and name. Now let's add an extra attribute over here. Let's call it extra, and the value will be value, and see how our code will react. If we hit send, we'll see that our code doesn't complain, which is not good, because we should not allow extra attributes to be sent. How we can resolve that? Simply by adding the option resolver to our code. So here what we are going to do is creating a new instance of option resolver, and then setting the defined values that we will accept, which are name, breed, age, weight, and color. Then we are setting name, breed as required, and finally we should resolve cat properties. So instead of getting values from cat properties that is passed to us through the argument, we will be doing this: resolved properties equals option resolver resolve, and then cat properties, like that. we will be having the resolver's properties over here, and then instead of using cat properties, we'll be using resolved properties. So let's retry again our postman call and see if will complain or not by adding this extra value. So if I hit send here, I should be getting an error, which is the option extra, which is passed here, does not exist. Defined options are age, breed, color, name, and weight. So we are moving in the right direction, and we are not allowing now extra values to be sent, which is good. Then the next step would be, we can also test that if we omit, for example, the breed, which is required, we'll be seeing that we should specify, sorry, I should send a good JSON format. So here the required option breed is missing, so we are validating that we should not add extra values, and we are setting name and breed as required. Now let's validate the types of our options. We do that by using setAllowedTypes method of option resolver. So for the name it will be string, for the breed it will be string as well, for the weight it will be either null or float because the weight is optional, and for the age it will be either null or int because the age is optional as well. So now if we go back and send, for example, let's send an integer for name, for example, let's say 123 for the cat name. If we send that, we should be seeing an error that the option name with value 123 is expected of type string but is of type int. So we are validating the types of our attributes, but we are not validating the values. For example, the age here is of type integer, which is validated. So if I send here a string, for example, of 3, it will say to me that the value 3 is not accepted, but say I can send an integer but it is a negative one, so I can send -3 as value. It will be accepted because it's still an integer, but the value -3 is not good. So we should also validate. You see here that the age is -3 and our code does not complain, but we should not accept that, and we should raise an exception, or we should do something to not allow the value -3. So how we can do that? Simply by calling setAllowedValues on option resolver and giving it a callable as a second argument. So setAllowedValues accept the option name and then either the allowed values, which are an array of static values, or we can give a callable here and then we return a boolean value to say that this option is accepted or no. So here in our case, for the age, we are passing a function that accepts an integer as value, an optional integer, and then we are saying that if our value is null or our value is greater than 0, then it is okay to accept this value. Otherwise, meaning that our value is not null and is -1, we should not accept this and an exception will be raised. So let's try this code. Now with the -3, we should be getting an error because the option age with value -3 is invalid. So we are validating the value of age. Now the last thing that we would be doing is for the color value. So we are going to do something interesting here. We said that the accepted values are either white, black, or gray, but what we are going here to do is sending only the first letter of the colors. So if you want the color to be white, we will send W and then we will transform this value to white through an interesting feature of option resolver, which is called the normalizer. So let's go back to our code and add control of the color option. If you go back here and see what we are doing, so we are setting allowed types of color to be string or null. Then we are allowing values to be for color white, gray, or black, which is W, G, or B. And then what we are doing here is setting a normalizer for our color option, and then it's going to take a callable, a function here, which accepts all the options available and then the value of our option. And what we are going to do is we are matching the value, our value. If it's W, we will return white. If it's Z, we will return gray, and if it's B, it will return black. So we can test that by going back to our API again, and if we send, for example, let's try color, for example X, and it should not accept that because the values accepted are W, G. Okay, we still have the age negative, so let's say 4, and now we should see the error of the color option. The option color with value X is invalid. Accepted values are W, G, and B. And if we send W, for example, we should see in the return here, we should see white and not W. So let's send and see the result. Yes, we have white. If we send B, we will be having black as the result. That means that in our code over here, our option resolver has taken the first letter of our color as input, and then thanks to the normalizer, it has transformed the value to the full length color, which is an interesting feature of the normalizer. That's it for today. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope that you have learned something new about the option resolver component, and see you in next videos to come. And as usual, I will be asking some questions to help you recall what you have seen in this small tutorial. Bye bye.